Hey there, thanks for tuning into Duckbricks. I'm Chris, and just today, the LEGO House has revealed 2025's exclusive set. And back in September, I got a chance to go to LEGO headquarters in Denmark and get an in-depth designer interview all about this brand new LEGO Fabuland set, learning about how it was made, all the ins and outs of the design process for bringing Fabuland back to life in 2025, and yes, stay tuned, because an in-depth review will be coming very soon. But now, let's transport ourselves back to Billund, the home of the LEGO Group, all the way back in September and hear from the LEGO designers about what it took to design this set. Let's go. So this is the brand new tribute to LEGO Fabuland, and it was really cool being able to go to the LEGO house last September and actually see them present prototypes of the set. Personally, I would have loved to see more upscaled Fabuland accessories like the amazing motorcycle and the vacuum cleaner they did, although I think it makes a lot more sense to keep the set focused on the band, because obviously you're trying to celebrate something here. I also think that the parts usage of the Ninjago dragon horn in gray for the elephant trunk would have been really cool, but I also do agree that maybe it looks a little bit better with the smaller trunk, at least compared to the original Fabuland figure. Here's a look at the set in person, in hand, and of course I will be publishing a full in-depth review whenever I'm allowed to, but you can pretty much get a decent look at it right here, based on the one they had on display, alongside the original set box as well. It comes with 1,026 pieces, and contains 4 of the Fabuland characters plus a tree. I really appreciate how they actually dive deep into history in that presentation, showcasing the bios of the characters they were able to dig up from the vault, and also really emphasizing what each of the characters means in terms of the world of Fabuland, and all of this is reflected in the instruction manual as well. The instruction booklets are separated per character, so you get a bit of a sense of the bios of each of them, and it was really cool just seeing the development process behind making a set like this. I'm really impressed by just how much effort they went into making the builds of the characters very solid but also articulatable, retaining the same amount of articulation the original figures had, which is really impressive. But speaking of which, let's just jump into that presentation right now. I have a lot more thoughts to share on the set, but I'll save those for the end of the video, and this is a pretty lengthy presentation, very in-depth as to how they designed this set, which I think is always a treat to have LEGO designers talk through the detailed design iteration process for making something like this. So without further ado, let's invite Stuart Harris up and take a look at how this set was made.
Hi everyone, my name's Stuart Harris. I'm the LEGO House Master Builder, and basically that means one of my responsibilities is to develop the concept model or the sketch model for each of the LEGO House exclusive sets, and that's what I'm going to introduce today, what's inside this mystery box here. You can see the embargo date here on the screen here, embargo lift on 20th of February 2025. So please pay attention to that. It would be nice if it was not leaked next year. Thank you. But I can tell you what this a little hint on what this set is. The working title for the set that we've developed for 2025 was called LEGO Storytelling. And what better way to start the theme of LEGO Storytelling is by telling you a story. So I'm going to take a comfy seat now, and I'm going to tell you a little story. Are you all sitting comfortably? Yes. Then I will begin. So let's start with the first one.
Let's go.
It was a beautiful spring day in Fabuland, and Edward Elephant was out in his garden. Good morning, Edward. Looks like I have a very important letter for you all the way from Denmark, said Boris Bulldog, as he was out delivering the Fabuland post. Goodness, Edward exclaimed as he opened the letter. Just at that moment, Joe Crow walked past. Hello, Edward. How are you? I'm very excited, he said with a huge grin. Oh, really, Edward? And why is that? Look at this. We've just received an invitation from LEGO House in Billund, Denmark, to come perform with our Fabuland band to celebrate the launch of their new exclusive LEGO House set. Wow, that's amazing, said Joe. That really is quite an honour. It is, replied Edward, and then he looked sad. You don't look very happy, Edward. Is something wrong? Said Dr. Lucy Lamb, who just happened to be passing by on her morning rounds. Well, explained Edward, our Fabuland band has been invited to perform at the LEGO House, but I don't know how we can all get to Denmark. Joe Crow burst out laughing and said,
my goodness.
Edward, we can all fly there in my aeroplane. Woohoo! Yes, you're right, cried Edward, looking a lot happier as a big grin returned to his face. Can I come too? Said a familiar voice from behind the tree, where Clive Crocodile was listening in on the conversation. Of course, Clive, said Joe. The more the merrier, and don't forget to all bring your instruments. We really must take a photo when we get there to share with everyone in Fabuland. It's going to be a fabulous day out at the home of the brick, declared Edward, and all his friends nodded in agreement. Now it's time for bed, everyone.
Oh, let's go.
And that probably gave you a little hint as to what the theme of this mystery set is underneath the box. I'm going to invite Sina and Marcus to lift the box up so we can show you 40506
Whoa!
Fabuland, the LEGO Fabuland tribute.
Whoa!
So, hope you like that. I'm actually going to invite Sina up next to give you a little bit of a history lesson.
Yes.
On what Fabuland was all about and why it was very important to the LEGO group and the legacy that Fabuland has left behind.
Yes, sure. Just gonna change that. Right. So I know it's very exciting. Hello, everyone. My name is Sine, and I am one of the corporate historians from the Idea House, and I have the very great pleasure of getting to talk a bit about LEGO Fabuland history. And so my focus in this presentation will be sort of on the early days of developing the play theme, because we have, as you guys know, the LEGO Group archives, and I've been digging pretty hard to find stuff that I hope you haven't seen too much of before. So we'll be looking into the whole concept and idea behind Fabuland. We'll also be looking at the elements of storytelling, especially focusing on the characters and their names and their bios and so on. And then I'll also do a quick dip into some of the LEGO Fabuland legacy, because it is still a play theme that is very much alive today, even though it was discontinued decades ago. So, as you guys might know already, some of you know, sure, Fabuland launched back in 1979. It was a very special LEGO play theme because we had, not least, these very wonderful characters that had these very distinct animal features, animal heads. And that actually leads me to start with something else, because Fabuland, as many other products that we do, they're standing on shoulders of what we have done previously. And the 1970s was for us a decade focusing a lot on roleplay, introducing roleplay into LEGO play. And so, just to give you an idea about us introducing roleplay, because as you guys know, it didn't start with Fabuland. We started out introducing these guys back in 1974, the LEGO building figure, which was our first attempt of doing a figure, adding roleplay to LEGO play. Oops. Because we were sort of responding to demands from children playing with Lego bricks that they also wanted people, We had provided cars and houses and all that. Now they would like someone to drive the cars and live in the houses. So we started out with the building figure. Then we moved on to, oh, that's wrong. Sorry. We moved on to those guys, the static figure, 1975. Then came the Duplo figures, 1977. And then, of course, 1978. Minifigures. And that was sort of our beginning of roleplay. And it is on these shoulders that these guys are standing, because they were introduced with Fabuland in 1979. And when we introduced Fabuland and the figures, it was the first time for us trying a lot of new things. And storytelling, as we have already mentioned, was a big part of that, because we hadn't really tried that. And storytelling is what we're saluting with this set here. And that brings me to, well, the actual idea and the concept. Because as I said, I've been digging a bit in the archive, and I found the original concept statement.
Oh my God.
So the overall purpose our point of view to create Fabuland was to develop a product line for children of the age of 3 to 7 because we wanted to close the gap from Duplo to System Grade. So that was the overall thinking. And then it sort of expanded from there. And here in the middle, we have an extract from the original concept statement. And on the right, I found a page from Klosshands, which is the old LEGO employee magazine. So this is an article about us introducing this wonderful, very new type of product line. And these two actually sums up very much what it's about, because in the concept statement, it says it's about building fun and fantasy play. There are large, easy to assemble pieces, different animal figures, read-along story booklets that combines building instructions and stories. And then, as it's stated in the employee magazine, this is a whole new world of play. So that was our beginning. The catalog from 1980 also shows very well that this was one connected whole theme that we introduced, because this was also a fairly new thing for us. We only started doing play themes in 1978, and we introduced town and castle and space and so on. So Fabuland is in fact the fourth original LEGO play theme. Now, being the LEGO group, we of course also did a lot of testing before we dared launch anything. So this here is a summary from a concept test from the autumn of 1977, where we concluded, after having done all of these tests with children, playing with the products, we concluded that children were really happy with the new figures, which was nice because we spent a lot of time on those. Especially the older children from the test group, they were also very fond of these new big house elements. One thing particular was a big hit was the staircase element, huge hit because they're so difficult to build. And then most children also found that the cars, they were kind of okay, especially because they had these firm bottoms. Yes. So that was us testing. Then there are the residents of Fabuland. Now, as you guys know, the characters of Fabuland is one of the most distinct and also most beloved part of this play theme. And the figures very much stand apart from the more generic LEGO minifigure because they had these different types of heads, and they also had different and sort of very fixed personalities right from the start, because we had spent so much time developing different bios for each character. It said here, this is also part of the original concept statement, that each character's personality should fit what was referred to as the normal reputation of the animal species. And that, for instance, meant making Lion the mayor of Fabuland. And so we developed these very specific bios, and I found some of those in the archive as well. Whoa. Now these are the ones from that you'll find in this new set. And I'm just going to read a bit of it, because I know you probably can't see all of it up there. So you're going to start with Edward. Edward is a kind, positive, and generous character. He may seem clumsy. However, he sometimes tries activities where in the end he happily and surprisingly finds that he can manage. He is patient and a little hesitant, but if other inhabitants in Fabuland are in real trouble, he overcomes his hesitation and helps them. That's Edward for you. Then we also have Joe. As we know, Joe is a pilot. He's a very competent pilot. He is brave, and he often comes to the rescue, and he is the hero of Fabuland. This is what his bio states. We also have Dr. Lucy Lamb here. Lucy is, according to her bio, she's coolly efficient, and she is always in control of any situation. She has a dynamic personality, always full of ideas and initiative, and she is extremely capable in her profession and has a strong and independent character. Then we also have Clive, the crocodile. Clive has almost always bad luck. Whatever Clive does, it causes trouble. Not because he is evil, but because he is overdoing things. He also has a big mouth, he speaks a lot, and he brags. Yeah. And then, just because I had so much fun with these bios, I kept going. Because these are... So here we have Lionel Lion, who's the mayor, of course. He has a tremendous self-confidence and never loses his seemingly unshakable composure. His great self-assurance is reflected in his tendency to brag, and he is often heard boasting about his own cleverness and superiority. There's also Marjorie Mouse, which has a very long bio, and also seems to be like the Marie Kondo of Fabuland, because Marjorie's methodical nature is reflected in her passionate desire to keep things neat and tidy. No one in Fabuland keeps such a clean house as Marjorie. She is almost fanatic in her desire to keep things efficient. And then also there's Fabuland's Miss Congeniality, which is Hannah Hippopotamus, who is extremely fond of plants, flowers, and everything that grows, and is a loving and generous person. So that was just to give you an idea of how much effort were put into creating these bios and these very specific characters. Right, so the names of Fabuland has always been the cause of some confusion to a lot of people. First, we started out with Danish names. They usually just had one single name once we started out developing the play theme. Then came these double names that we know today, and also the names would also vary on different markets and so on. So this is another set of bios that I found from the archive, and they are less details in describing the personality, but they're more about identifying the characters. And then also mentioned here, which I thought was really funny when I was doing this, there is the original Danish names and occupation as well. So for instance, we have Dr. Lucy Lamb, who in Danish was Fru Flink, which translates into Mrs. Nice. We also have Lionel Lion, who in Danish was Borgmester Brøle, and that translates into Mayor Raw. Clive Crocodile was simply known as Laban, and you might notice his occupation, he was a villain. And then also we have Joe Crow, whose original name was Carly. So this was just to give you an idea of some of the original names. Now, just to dwell a bit more, this is again an extract from the employee magazine Klodshands, which is from early 1980, and it sort of shows a list of different Fabuland names on in different markets. And the headline reads, "It's tricky being international," and it sort of shows you that apparently it was already tricky with the whole name thing in 1980, and we couldn't really figure it out ourselves, so we had to do that in our employee magazine. And also on the right, some of, well, Edward, Elton, Elmer's names that he has had on different markets. Now, I already said storytelling a couple of times.
Yeah, let's go.
So as I mentioned when I started out, we tried so many things for the first time with Fabuland, and the legacy of Fabuland still very much lives on, although we only kept Fabuland going for 10 years. I think one of the most obvious legacy parts of Fabuland in LEGO products today are the elements of storytelling, because imagine these 4 play themes without elements of storytelling. I mean, I personally can't. So storytelling is definitely a crucial element in Fabuland, and is still in lots and lots of the play themes that we do today. Then there's also the very sort of specific legacy, which are some of the elements, and I know there are more than what I found here. So with Fabuland, we of course introduced these very unique animal-shaped heads, that's obvious, but we also introduced quite a lot of elements, especially like accessory elements, that are still alive in more, newer Lego set. And I just, because this image had 3 of them, so that's why I used it. There's the broom, for instance, which is the same broom as Harry Potter used to fly on. There's the pot down at the bottom, which have been cooking quite a lot of meals in Lego castle sets, for instance. And then of course there's also the white breads, which are also just a super iconic set. So that's just to give you an idea that yes, we discontinued Fabuland in '89, but it still very much lives on. And then finally, when I started doing this presentation, this was the first image I chose, and then I had to figure out what to say to it. Because I simply just had to include it, because I grew up building Fabuland sets. It was the first time I had sets that my older brothers didn't want to, get their hands on, so I had Lego sets by myself, for myself, for the first time. And to me, this photo really just sums up everything Fabuland was to me, because these were stories you could build. And I think that was it from me. So thank you. And then I'll hand you back to Stuart, who will take you through the development process of the model.
So, as I mentioned earlier, part of my job is to develop the concept models, the sketch model for the set, and then I hand it over to a proper designer, a professional, who can make it a great build and play experience. So actually this is the first concept model that I did. But actually before this came about, I also was working on sort of, which characters, the scale of them. I actually started with 2 scales. I started, these characters are a double size. I started also with a triple size, but for me, one of the important things about these characters was I wanted to get as many characters as possible into the set, into the box, because these characters were fantastic. I spent a lot of time watching all the TV series, the Edward and Friends television series with the famous Bernard Cribbins narrating that. I was working, Mike, by the way, but it was research. But it was fantastic to watch those and see those characters come alive and see the stories, and it was just so cute watching those ones. So that was also informing me which characters we wanted to include, and also collaborate with Sina, because Sina was also very close to Fabuland, about which characters we should represent in this set. So I thought maybe we could get 3, possibly we could get 4 characters in there. So built a few characters, and we did end up with 4. But one of the important things about the whole storytelling aspect of it is the accessorization, and Fabuland had some amazing accessories, and so I started working up some of those accessories and those elements to see could we get some kind of story out of these ones. So here you can see some of the enlarged elements here, the scooter, and my favorite is the vacuum cleaner. I don't know why, but it's a really cute element. So I really wanted to see if I could get the vacuum clean in there. But actually it was Marcus and Marcus will come on next to tell you about the development of taking the prototype. I have collaborated with him a lot in the development process, and I had a conversation with Marcus about what he thought in terms of sort of the elements that we should use, the accessories that we should put in here to create the story. And Marcus selected he selected a musical instrument, which he'll come on to a little later. And so that for me was like, yeah, that's a great idea. This is what we could really combine the characters together, is to actually form a band. And one of the episodes of Edward and Friends in the television series, those of you who might remember, Lion had his all his instruments in the attic of the mayor's house, and the characters brought them down, and they actually sort of started playing with them. So I thought that'd be a great one to incorporate in here and get the characters playing musical instruments. So. I still tried to get the vacuum cleaner in there, but it didn't quite hold together as a story. So we actually got Edward to be the conductor of the band, of the band that we have here. So you can see here. So the final selection ended up like this, with the 4 characters on the base there, and that is basically what I hand over to Marcus as being the brief for the model that we want to have as the next exclusive set in the LEGO house. And Marcus then takes that sketch model, and I don't know what you do with it. You just trash it straight away. But he basically takes that sketch model, and that's the design direction that we want to go in. And so actually, what traditionally at this point in a presentation, despite the fact that I have done all the hard work, this is the point where Marcus throws me under the bus. So here we have the Fabuland bus. So Marcus, if you'd like to come up, and if you'd like to now throw me under this bus. Oh my God. And tell us about the development process.
I from the idea house.
I don't get to keep this?
No.
God.
And that's one of the things, when I borrow something from the archive, I put a little yellow shoe in the place. And I think because
that makes sense.
You saw
I was like,
on the Friday tour, there's a little yellow shoe in there.
That was the placeholder.
Yes, and they know who stole it.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Marcus. I'm a senior designer for the LEGO Group. And once a year I get lucky, and LEGO House asks me if I can throw Stuart under the bus. So that means I take over a sketch model from Stuart and try to turn it into a LEGO product that in the end of the day has a good experience, a good build flow. It is fun, it is a cool toy, and it's actually also a cool display set. When I start out, I don't throw your model in the bin, because I take a photo first. So I can publicly humiliate you, because in this case, what I ended up doing, whenever I see a model of Stuart's, I see a lot of red flags. Because that's what I do for a living. I take somebody else's model and I try to tweak it so that in the end of the day you have a beautiful product. So when I looked at this, I saw a bunch of red flags. It's everything from using brickhead's eyes that are like locked to the product line to things that weren't just looking the part to, I mean, I was confident I could fit Joe in, but where does he go? So there's a lot of little notes that come together when I look at the initial sketch model that Stuart makes, because simply he doesn't have to care. Like, he makes a cool model that has to like sell to a few internal people, and then I get to worry about it for 3 to 6 to I don't know how many months, because that's our relationship. And then I get to throw him under the bus afterwards. Today I will talk about the different components of this and how they came together. The 3 components are, of course, the figures, very important, the base, not like a Minecraft base, but a proper one, and the tree, because the LEGO Fabuland tree is just so iconic. I will not talk about the base because the base is boring, but I will start with the tree, because to me the tree is one of those Fabuland elements that is just so iconic. It is like still one of those things that has like just aged beautifully. I have one at home and it's one of my favorite LEGO elements just because it is so beautiful. But it also meant that I had to pay it homage and had to treat it right. This is the one that Stuart made, and while it's not bad, it breaks a lot of rules. It has very few studs. At LEGO we like studs. We like to make sure that you know that you can build this. But it also didn't quite match the original tree. The shape is a lot more irregular than whatever symmetrical thing that Stuart came up with. There's also like, it's just not right. Sorry. But that's where I come in. That's where I come in. So I started digitizing this very quickly. I throw it into our LD Pro software. And then I just make different versions. And this is honestly just me going through the different versions because it was quite difficult to get this right. So this is how I started. I just basically dragged elements out into Nirvana and just tried to make sense of where things went, because the shape is actually very hard to match. These circles are at the same distance from one another, which is frankly impossible to do at LEGO. There's a second version, just moving a few elements around, just trying to figure out where stuff has to be in thin air. That's why there's a white plate that holds everything together. And thankfully we can do this in LDD, because otherwise I would just be like going mental. But I also did in real life, that's why I have a base plate. There was a lot of me just like shoving circles around on a base plate. Can't recommend, it's very frustrating. But the left one, the example on the left is actually what I was struggling with. Because, as I said, the circles on the tree are actually at the same distance to one another from the center. And this would have been the optimal solution. The problem is it's not buildable. This is not fun to do. The vertical offset, the horizontal offset, everything is jumped. There's just no connection. So as nice as this would have been, I think I spent a whole 10 minutes looking at it and then I threw it in the bin. But that's also part of the job. Studs Up was one execution, but I figured I should also try this one. A sideways built one that was very smooth, very elegant, and also would get the holes in the right location. But this once again proved to be very unbuildable. And the other day we want a building experience that is fun, that is easy, that you can like explain the building instructions, and that at the end of the day you actually enjoy, and this was not enjoyable. So this also went into the bin. So in the end, I actually went back to a Studs Up version and I just tweaked that slightly. It doesn't actually match the Fabuland tree 100%, but it's close enough. And this is actually a pretty nice build. It takes what Stuart had and just levels it up, which is what I'm here for, I guess. So I sent this to Stuart. This is a screenshot from our Teams conversations. I want to know if you can approve the video on the right. Approved, so a big win. But Stuart wouldn't be Stuart if he then didn't ask if I could also add the apples. If the quarter circles can have an apple print, because Stuart likes his prints. I said no, because I had other things to focus on. Also, it wouldn't have fit the scale of the elements. It was just not happening. Sorry, Stuart. Here's a dive comparison, thanks to our friends from the elementary. Thanks, Tim. The tree is, as you can see, not 100% matching, and that is simply due to how it's built. In the end of the day, we need to make sure that you can actually build this. And as such, we developed a way where you have a very sturdy base of these plates. They are green in the model, they're not white, but to highlight them, and then you actually build on top of this. And that meant that it had to have a certain symmetry, but I tried to break it up in the corners and on the top. to get it a bit closer. I think it captures the essence of it very well, while also being its own thing. That's the tree. The second and most important component, in my opinion, are the figures. There's nothing more iconic than the Fabuland characters, just because they are so, like, they're so full of character. So taking what Stuart had, which in this case we're going to use Joe Crow as an example because he's the hero, just meant there was a few things to focus on. We all know the classic Fabuland characters, and I picked one up yesterday in the many little secondhand stores around town. So they have movable arms, they have movable legs, and they move more easily than you would want them. And then you have a rotatable neck, and then of course the accessories as well. And that meant there were 4 different points I had to focus on and that I had to solve in order to actually make these figures into a good product. Because at the end of the day, you do want to pose them, you do want to give them the accessories because that's what you're used to from the classic LEGO Fabuland experience. So, just to highlight the notes, because we still have to go through on the bus. The head is built in all directions, which is a bit of a challenge because we want to make this a experience also for younger builders. It's just slightly illegal. We need to figure out the hand attachments because Stuart hadn't bothered with that. The arms won't hold up, and I also wanted to remove the hand rotation because the Fabuland figures actually don't have rotatable hands like the minifigures do. So I just wanted to keep that close. And the hinges most certainly wouldn't work, as it says down here. And much of the presentation now becomes very nerdy about hinges because that's all I have to deal with these 4 times. So let's jump into that. This is Clive, and the initial build that Stuart made for him. Actually, this is already updated because Stuart's torso build was all bonkers and illegal. But this is essentially to highlight the joint we're using here. It's the classic rocker hinge that most of us know from growing up. I had a ton of these. I loved these as a kid because you could angle them in all kinds of fun ways. The problem is they're not very stable. You only have 2 studs on the top to connect anything, and they don't have a lot of clutch, and the 2 studs on the bottom don't help either. But what I have to give Stuart credit for, they look the part. They look perfect to capture that very blocky top of the legs. And as such, large part of what I was chasing the next couple of months after I took this over was getting that look while making it more stable, which in hindsight wasn't easy. Thank you, Stuart. But yes, just to highlight, these joints, these hinges won't work. And that's a recurring motif. I quickly came up with a different way of doing this, which was using clips and bars. This is a plate that the Friends team made last year, and it is super handy for this kind of stuff. But we also found out that the rotational force just wasn't big enough. There was not enough resistance to actually prevent the figures from falling over once you put a giant tuba into their hands, or an accordion. And we just needed to make sure that they actually hold up to play and that you can pose them and that you can maybe even sit them down. So once again, unfortunately, these hinges won't work. It's a very recurring theme, and it was actually so bad, like I spent a couple weeks on this and got increasingly challenged, so that I reached out to Stuart asking if I could remove them. No, to be honest, I was asked to ask Stuart if I can remove them, and of course he said no. So I went back to my drawing board, I went back to the element drawers, and sometimes it helps to just stare at what you have to figure out what's left. So this is an element palette of all kinds of joints we have, and I think I just killed them one by one. Like these didn't work. The clips and bars didn't work because not only did the clips not work, but the bars also didn't have any resistance. So that was out of the window. Then I was asked to look into Technic. Technic isn't fun. It also has a lot of resistance, so that is gone. And there's also a mixel joint in there, which, as you know, we can't recolor. So we were left with click hinges. Click hinges are very good because they are very sturdy. They rotate in increments, and they have a lot of resistance. So that's what I ended up doing. We ended up with a construction like this, which then also meant doing the whole figure because it was built sideways now. But it at least solved the problem. So this is kind of the evolution that we went through from initially Stuart's model to the clip that unfortunately didn't work to what is in the final model, which is a studs up build on the legs and then a sideways built torso that then allows you to have that rotation, very sturdy, very safe, very secure, with also the clicks, which actually is quite satisfying at this size. So then I was excited because I solved it. So I texted Stuart, solved the hinges, works like a charm. And I still need to see that Snoopy style happy dance. Is that part of the Playful tour or something?
Yeah, we'll get back to that.
Okay, well, you should chase him. And then, unfortunately, I had other bad news because the shoulder joints kept being a problem because, you solve one thing and then there's another problem that comes up. So let's get nerdy about shoulder joints. This is Edward on the right and his arm on the left. This is the initial arm design that Stuart came up with. And as I highlighted already, these arms won't hold because simply they are connected to a stud. I think I have the sketch model here somewhere. You just do this and the arm is gone in multiple different ways, which is not an optimal experience if you want to like pose this and then the arm is just anywhere but where it's belonging. So we had to figure out how to solve that. And as I mentioned, I also wanted to remove the hand rotation. As much as it was nice for like, more posing, it just wasn't what the original character had. Like this had to have fixed hands because that's the Fabuland figures I have at home. So we threw the arm out of the window. Stuart's arm went under the bus. I first started tweaking the arm itself because I wanted just a rigid design. So we just swapped it to a clip. It is, of course, as you might imagine, still not strong enough to actually hold because it's still only attached to a single stud. And then I actually ended up going with a bar connection. This is the espresso plate that most of you will know. It goes into 318 holes on the 1x4 plate underneath, and that actually makes for a nice and secure connection until you put instruments on them and repeatedly move them up and down like you would if you're performing in a band. And then these actually work itself out. That's what I'm trying to illustrate with the arrow. So over time, the 318, the bar connection actually becomes loose because the element is not made for repeated rotation, which meant I had to go back to the drawing board, which is, I guess, a theme that's pretty constant in this presentation. So yeah, these arms won't hold, part 3. Sorry for repeating myself, but that's the process. The end solution was actually this. We actually ended up combining a 318 clip with a superhero's plate, the 1x2 plate with holes, and that actually prevents you from both pulling it out vertically and from pulling it out horizontally, and the clip actually gives you the extra amount of friction that you need for a clean and smooth and also sturdy rotation. So now they have like nice movement and they're very stable. But this also means I actually went through, what is that?
Oh my
9 different
goodness.
versions before I actually solved everything. You can see there's different things that I tackle on every single one of the versions. I go through multiple different torso builds, sideways, upside down, just to solve certain illegal builds by a certain master builder. And also just attachment points, like I switched, for example, from the Mixel receptor to the Mixel ball, just to make it a bit more sturdy and easy to build. The final version is 4B, as the bottom right corner, and then I noticed that there were 3 more characters, so I had to then go back and redesign a few things, because not every color exists in every brick, but that meant everything was solved. Apart from the fact that I hadn't actually looked at the heads yet, which is arguably the most important part of the Fabuland characters, because that's where all the charisma and where all the character is. So this is the designs that Stuart came up with, and once again, they're not bad. They're totally serviceable until you want to make a Lego instruction out of them. Just to highlight what's wrong about them, because that's what I'm here for, we need to swap out the brickhead's eyes. We thankfully have a very close deco to that fits. They're built in all directions, which is something we don't really want because it's very complex to the code. We want to optimally start with a flat base and then build upwards, just because that's easier to handle for most people that aren't hardcore fans like you guys. We wanted to smooth out Lucy Lamb's head because in the actual figure it's very smooth. It doesn't have as many studs. For example, for some reason Clive actually is missing most of his scales. I think Stuart was just lazy to go to stock. And we wanted to tweak Joe a bit because it has an illegal build in its beak. Sometimes I think Stuart is just testing me if I still swap this stuff. So this is the final heads. They went a bit more Lego. You will see, for example, that the trunk on Edward just went down in size a lot, simply because the element that Stuart used, while a great, nice part usage, a great NPU, it's just not quite Lego. It didn't feel what the Lego interpretation should be of the classic character. So I went with a more, I guess, toned down approach, which is not quite matching the original character, but it feels a lot closer to what the brand should look like. Clive has gotten a lot more like 3-dimensional shaping. Lucy has gotten new ears and a smoothed out top. Everything else is very close. She's now built studs up, which I think was also a big help, because I think building instructors got a heart attack when I first showed the heads. And then Joe is no longer illegal. There's one problem with Joe though, which I couldn't fix in the end, because I had to build them like this, just to solve the illegal build on the very left. The fix is on the middle, and this is how it breaks apart. This is very much built in all directions, so I do break my own rules. But I just wanted to break this down to just show what goes into it, because it was actually quite a puzzle to get to this point, wanting to get the shape on the helmet, wanting to get the beak at the right distance, jumpered, built into this, locked properly. Like, there's a lot of things going on here, but it actually makes for a very fun building experience because of all the colors on the inside. And I know everybody always complains about colors on the inside, but I made sure that they're all in the classic Fabuland colors, except for the brain, because Joe needs a brain. We've all learned that from brickheads, that that's just a fun little detail. So that's how we fixed Joe, and how we made a nice lineup of heads. Finally, this wouldn't be complete without the accessories, and as Stuart mentioned, there had to be an accordion. And that is because this is me when I was 5, and I got my first accordion. My whole family is massively into accordions. My dad still plays, my mom still plays. And this was me as a young child, not knowing any better. Because it's certainly not cool in school, but it's a nice photo to throw in a presentation like this. So we were looking at these different instruments, and there was just one thing that all of these accessories had in common, and that was that they were illegal. Because we can't clip a tile with a sticker on it into a clip. The accordion was built in 2 directions which collide. The tuba has a lot of nonsense in technique and system combined, which is a no-no, but that's what I'm here for. I will not go into massive detail because I don't want to bore you, but these are the final versions. And you can see I didn't even bother building the drum because it was so broken that I just ignored it. But so we fixed all the little details. I wanted to capture the curve on the accordion because it's very iconic on the original design. We needed a big sticker surface that we can, because we wanted to feature LEGO House in the product. Because we always want to tie the product back to LEGO House.
Oh, that's
it was a really
cool.
fun idea to just have a selfie in front of LEGO House, which I think many of us have taken. And the Fabuland execution on that is just very cute. Stuart is going to talk about it in a moment. And then, of course, just to highlight, all these accessories are built in the same distance from one another, so you can actually swap them out. You can actually give the accordion to Edward. You can give the tuba to Clive. You can just swap them around like you would with the original accessories, which was very important to me. So that also means that the drum goes on every single one of the characters, and they all can play the drums, which meant redesigning the torsos. But in the end of the day, I think that was important to actually capture what Fabuland was about and what these accessories were about, these wonderful little things. All of that to be said is that we have a product that has 4 different characters, it has a tree, and it has this face that I didn't even cover. But the beautiful thing with this is there's actually 5 different instructions. No, wait, I can't count. There's 6 different
They
instructions.
have them already ready
Which
to
means
go.
you can build this with your family, and you can actually like your children can build Clive and Joe, and you can build Edward, or you build it with friends. So like it was very nice to actually to get this done, because it means it's not just you by yourself building it, but also as a family experiencing what Fabuland was all about. The figures can also rotate on the bases, so you can actually display it in whichever way you want. You can swap them around, so it has all the classic LEGO experience that you would expect. And I think that's finishing me. This is the final product. This is 4, 5, or 6 LEGO Fabuland tribute, and I'm very happy with it. Like, it was a treat to work on LEGO Fabuland and get to experience it, because I've only ever seen it in secondhand stores and collected a ton of these. But I know that there's certain people in the room, Richard, for example, who loves these dearly. So it's a treat getting to bring them to life. But I mentioned that Stuart is going to highlight the sticker, so I'm going to hand it back to Stuart and talk a bit about the design. I want to do that. Thank you.
Well, you wait for one bus and then 10 come along at once. There's a whole fleet. So as I mentioned, we tried to put in a little LEGO House kind of Easter egg in some of these things, and we thought the ideal opportunity for that was to do it as the photograph, the selfie sticker, because that's what I put in the story that I read to you at the beginning, which is actually included in the building instructions. We have included the story just like the original building instructions did, but they had a little story that you would read along as you were building. So we wanted to include a little LEGO House reference in there, as Marcus mentioned. So we actually have last year we expanded the team with a new associate master builder, guy called Didak, and Didak is a very talented graphic designer and illustrator. And so we actually approached him and said, do you fancy doing some Fabuland illustrations? So he actually did the illustrations for the book and for the story that I showed you earlier, that we included in the building instructions. And then we also worked on the little sticker that we have in the set there. So we tried a couple of different approaches. Of course, we got in the square. You might have seen it. We have our photo opportunity, the hole in the wall kind of thing. And then we tried also doing a Fabuland makeover of LEGO House, which I would love to see one day. But we thought that one was kind of the more iconic one, just the generic Fabuland house, and the guy standing in front of LEGO House with his Fabuland makeover there. So that was kind of the sketch that we said, let's go and develop that one, which is what we included on the final sticker, which you can see a little more detail there in front of LEGO House there. So that is the new set 40506 launching next year. Reminded again of the embargo, which was the 20th of February. Yes, thank you, of next year. And with that, I'll actually hand you over to Hassan to sum things up.
Yes, some pieces of information that were already mentioned, but it's set number 40506 with 1026 elements, and it will be available for 699 Danish crowns from the 1st of March. So one of those other things that we do here at the LEGO House to celebrate fans, we have the World Explorer, the area upstairs in one of the experience zones, where we, on an annual basis, also change the ship that's in that display area. So this time around, Stuart approached another Stuart to create a new ship that would be themed around Fabuland. So from Thursday during April Day, that ship will be changed and a new Fabuland themed ship will be displayed. And I'll show you on the next slide a little bit more about that. But on top of that, we've also got our team with Sina and her colleagues who are putting together a historical display downstairs in our basement in the historical collection. That'll be available and open to the public from February, when all through January we are closed, but once we reopen, that'll be open to everyone. So it's a great way for us to at least celebrate Fabuland in a more sort of tied together way. As I mentioned up in the World Explorer Gallery, we and some of you may know, but we invited Stuart Lamb Cromer, a huge Fabuland fan. So it's been a pleasure working with him throughout this process. Stuart having briefed him before I started here at the LEGO House, and that's been a really interesting process to see how he has interpreted Fabuland with all of his knowledge about that theme. But he'll be coming in on Thursday morning to install his model just before all the chaos of Eiffel Day kicks off. So we're really excited to see his model in person, because we think it absolutely looks fascinating. I think like a little bit of sort of background about Stuart is that he's got some visual impairments. So we think it's even more impressive that like everything that he builds comes with that limitation, but he pours so much energy and passion into it. And a small sort of little Easter egg has also been fascinating, that he started integrating or using Lego Braille bricks in his builds. So it's hidden well inside, but it's sort of like the brain in some of the brickheads and now this Fabuland set, where it's those little details that are hidden inside the models that add to the building experience and the story around everything.
What a presentation. That was super cool to hear from legendary LEGO designers and historians about how this set was crafted, and I'm really glad to have been able to share that presentation with all of you. It was one of the coolest things I witnessed at the LEGO house and was very, very special to be there in person, and I'm just glad that folks watching at home will be able to get a sense of what it was like being in the room when this was showcased. But now let's get back to our coverage of the set, going over to the box. I left on the side of the box includes some of the LEGO Fabuland facts, showcasing that there were 99 retail sets, which I did not even realize myself. Fabuland is one of the themes I am trying to 100% complete, and it's probably also one of the themes that is hardest for me to complete because these sets are so hard to come by. Seeing the prototypes on display was also super cool to just see how much effort went into the different stages of development here, with the different types of animals on the base plate here, that recolored horn piece for the trunk of the elephant, and while I do think that in large, all of the changes made to each of the figures was an improvement over the original designs, I think that they definitely are a lot better now in the final set versus the original ones, which definitely are very, very fragile. There is something very charming about seeing some of the elements that didn't quite make it into the set, like the upscaled motorcycle here, or even the original build for the musical instrument, which definitely would have been kind of a nightmare for standard fans to play around with. It definitely does not look very structurally sound, but aesthetically it looks really solid, almost like a mock as opposed to an actual set. It's also cool just seeing some other really interesting odds and ends here, and the whole reveal was done really nicely, with the question mark box revealing the set. You can tell they were proud of this build at the LEGO house, and they should be. It's a big step up over last year's, which honestly was a little disappointing for me, just the plain dark gray background for the LEGO building systems, and I believe that a lot of that is because of the incredibly talented builders involved in this particular set, especially Marcus Robuler, who is famous for designing the LEGO Ninjago city sets, who basically came in and was able to redesign this set completely based off of the original concept by the legendary Stuart Harris and turn it into an actual retail set that could be easily displayed, but also very sturdy and easy to build. Altogether, I'm very excited for folks to be able to get their hands on this one, and I'm sure it's going to be a little controversial bringing back Fabuland as a LEGO house exclusive, because I'm sure a lot of people would really love to get their hands on this who can't physically go to Billund and make the trip out, and hopefully if this does well and if online reception of the set is really positive, maybe LEGO might consider bringing back Fabuland in some degree. We kind of have Fabuland back in the form of Animal Crossing, but it would be really cool to see LEGO do their own unique take on a theme like this. Overall, that sums up our look at the brand new LEGO House Fabuland set. Again, stay tuned because I will be doing an in-depth review showcasing all the characters, the builds, and everything involved in the set very soon as I'm allowed to publish that review, but hopefully this was enough to whet your appetite for now to take an early look at the Fabuland set, and thank you to the folks over at LEGO House for showcasing this amazing build to us. I can't wait to see what they're cooking for next year's exclusive, and let me know in the comments what do you think of this set.